Welcome to the Drug Trends presentation. My name is Emily Lacher, and I am a health educator with the Marshfield Clinic Health System Center for Community Health Advancement. Today we will be talking about the misuse of prescription drugs. I first want to start out talking about what prescription drugs are. There are three major classes of prescription drugs. The first is opioids. Opioids can be used to relieve pain. Some common names of opioids is Vicodin, Oxycontin, and codeine. The second class is depressants. Depressants can be used to relieve anxiety or help a person sleep. Some common names for depressants are Valium or Xanax. Finally, the third class is stimulants. Stimulants can be used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, and some common names for this drug is known as Adderall and Ritalin. Every medication has some risk for harmful effects, and sometimes they're serious. Doctors and dentists consider the potential benefits and risk to each patient before prescribing medications and take into account a lot of different factors. When prescription drugs are misused, they can be just as dangerous as drugs that are made illegally. So what is prescription drug misuse? Here are a few examples to consider prescription drug misuse. 1. Taking someone else's prescription medication, even if it's for a medical reason, such as to relieve pain or to stay awake. 2. Taking a prescription medication in a way other than prescribed. For instance, taking more than the prescribed dose, or taking it more often, or crushing pills into powder to snort or inject the drug. 3. Taking the prescription medication to get high. Now that you know what prescription drug misuse is, let's talk about what happens to the body. In the brain, neurotransmitters, such as dopamine, or the feel-good chemical, sends messages by attaching to receptors on nearby cells. The actions of these neurotransmitters and receptors cause the effects from prescription drugs. Each class of prescription drugs works a bit differently in the brain and can cause actions similar to some illegal drugs. For example, prescription opioid pain medications bind to molecules on cells known as opioid receptors. These are the same receptors that respond to heroin. These receptors are found on nerve cells in many areas of the brain, but are most prevalent in the brain areas involved in the perception of pain and pleasure. Oftentimes, addiction occurs to treat a mental illness or to help someone cope with a traumatic event. If you or a friend are in crisis and need to speak to someone now, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. And they just don't talk about suicide. They cover a lot of issues and will help you put you in touch with someone close by. If your friend isn't comfortable calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, encourage them to speak with a trusted adult. If a friend is using drugs, you might have to step away from the friendship for a while. It's important to protect your own mental health and not put yourself in a situation where drugs are being used. A great way to prevent drug misuse is to dispose of unneeded or expired medications at your local Dropbox location. You can find that link in the description below. Also, don't forget to share what you learned about today.